Let me tell you of a story of a man who lives in a society where names are pointless. This is a dystopian tale about a man, the city that he lives in, that he can never escape, and a world that he begins to find out is nothing much more than lies and the truth behind everything, and also the history of this world and nation that he lives in. This is the dystopian tale written by me about an unnamed man in the city of New Caledonia. It starts off with this man waking up, a normal day to day life, drab, alone, in a very small, cramped cell of an apartment. Everything is one room, including his facilities, the toilet and sink and such. His city is very clean, it's well orderly. There is no cars, because nobody can afford such luxuries. Himself, he is squat in size, very skinny, just like everybody else, and very gaunt, almost looking like he is nearing death due to starvation. Well, that's how everyone he sees looks exactly like him. Gaunt, very pale, starving, and looking like they're about to die at a drop of a hat. He goes to his job. He has multiple names as he goes about his day, just like everybody else. You have several names in this world. The name that your close friends would call you, your true name, what you call yourself, and will never tell anybody. We don't know if this is normal for everyone, but at least for him, he finds that names and titles are pointless in this world. He has a designation, not even a name, when he enters work. And he has another name that his family would call him. Except in this story, his family is long gone. No siblings, no relatives, no aunts, no uncles, no children, no nieces or nephews. Parents have long gone. He lives in a time where two ages pass within his society. These ages are known as the Forever War, which is ending as the time of this story begins, and the New Age, the age of this new propaganda, where the government is declaring that the whole world is under the heel of the government, and all nations ceases to exist where it's just one nation. He finds out throughout this story that happens to be a lie. But in the beginning, this new world belief is taking place within his city. Most of the people don't know if there is anything beyond the city limits. All they know is that food comes from the hinterlands by rails. and yet nobody has known anyone to work on the rail lines, to travel of these cargo trains, or even to be the engineer or conductor any, or any sort of personnel to be on these cargo trains. Books do not exist. What we consider television is primarily the only form of so called entertainment. No one knows how to read nor write. Schools have been abolished. Free speech, there is no such thing. You're free to speak in joy and belovedness of the country, but to say anything to correct it or correct anyone or to ridicule of the society in any way, you will be disappeared. Nobody really knows. Anytime there has been cases of where people broken down in the street, strange vans of unknown origin come out of nowhere. The only sort of vehicles that you may see would be government vehicles or tanks and such. But these people have no idea what these strange vehicles are. They have no markings, no license plates. Fit men coming out of these vehicles, faces covered, bodies all the same coverings, grabbing people that have broken down and taking them away, never to be seen again. There are only a few ways out of this world. And most choose one particular route, death. The other routes is if you are lucky that you can end up being part of the military. There is no police within this city, no fire departments, no firefighters, no doctors, no medical personnel, no lawyers, no judges, no legal system. None that anyone knows. There is no voting, and no one is a citizen within this nation. The only actual citizens, when this guy, this main character, finds out about his world, that there is only one party known as the Party, which is a select few people within a select few families that are of the ultra rich. They're the only ones that are citizens, and if you can consider of such things as voting, they're the only ones that are allowed to and can vote. Most of the time, they just discuss about how to fuck over their citizens and how to drain every last cent out of them. Of his knowledge of these things, it first starts out that one day he comes across a mysterious tape. He plays it. It happens to be at his front door. Luckily for him, his society didn't even bother to do is tape people or have monitoring like crazy. This is when he begins to find out that his world is not what it seems. And as time goes on, he keeps on seeing strange events, strange things, people coming out of doorways that seemingly never existed, buildings that seem to always exist but never seen anybody enter nor leave, which seems to have no purpose of any knowledge of what it could possibly have of any kind of purpose. And yet, one day, he sees people leaving and sometimes entering of such places. And these people don't dress like everyone else. Everyone else is the same drab, ridiculous clothes. And if you're wondering why there is no theft of any kind, there is no weapons of any kind, because it does not exist. It has never existed within this group, as far as they know. Indoctrination starts at a very young age and continues on. He finds out that his nation is tiny in comparison of what it once was, and how much of the land has been broken up and forged into separate countries, and how massive taxation and tariffs and the destruction of their nation's government systems before the party took over of everything. This party destroyed their previous nation, its capabilities of everything, to the point where they made enemies of the world. They tried to do was take over the world, failed miserably. There was civil unrest and civil war. This becomes the reason why his city seems to be the way it is. Rights were abolished, and whole generations were wiped out. So new, younger generations arose where they had no rights. And the oligarchy, which is this party, consists of very wealthy families that basically are inbred amongst themselves and within their own family lineage. So think of the Habsburgs, except gone awry to where even this oligarchical status, these people, these very wealthy people, they are a dying breed. He finds out that many of the families that once made up have dwindled down to a select few, and their population has dwindled so much over the years. He doesn't even know what year it really is. The concept of dates and even the day of the week ceases to not exist in his world at the moment. What he knows, he finds out that the rest of the world ignored this society after its collapse and pretty much demise. It became a hermit nation on purpose, to where the oligarchy can travel anywhere around the world, have businesses everywhere, and they control every aspect of this nation that this character lives in. The name of his nation has changed to where it's now known as the government, and the people are just known as the people of the land. of the government. Saying that they're the people of the land is blasphemy. There are no safeguards here. He finds out that this world is a farce. His nation has broken down to the point where it's mainly controlled by city states, more or less, such as New Caledonia was one such city state where an oligarchical family, one small family, has taken control and built up what is New Caledonia. It's not tofu dredge or anything, good quality of building, but remolded the society to where no strife would exist by eliminating all forms of creativity, free speech, even freedom of thought. And then also eroded their economy. It was already destroyed beyond recognition. Their currency dwindled to where no one would ever back it or even use it outside of this nation. And New Caledonia was the first one of these city states to decide that it would be pointless to do is have a physical currency, waste of resources. So, all the currency and all banking and such is through electronic means. And the ridiculous jobs that people have pretty much are pointless. These jobs pay very little, and such of the society, of these oligarchs, the government doesn't technically own anything. It's these families that own corporations that own up all of these separate little businesses to making this monopolies. And they're all interconnected. It might as well just be, everything labeled as Acme. Might as well. But no. But New Caledonia was different. One family controlled every aspect, controlled the currency, became the model for this nation, made sure that no one was allowed to leave or enter. Any factories that exist within New Caledonia, they are maintained by machines. Yes, all of the manufacturing is done by machines. There is no humans that actually work at these plants or factories or assembly plants or anything as such. And if you're wondering, who would repair such things? Well, they actually hire people who are intelligent, who are capable of programming and fixing of such things. Not from their own peoples, from their nation, but from others that are outside. Very few are stupid enough to take the job and actually go to this ridiculous nation. Majority, if anyone took any job from them, it would be a remote job over the internet and such. The internet still exists, except the people of this nation don't know of such things, because information of such things do not exist to them. It has never been told. Because remember, their society is now constructed by these oligarchs, because anyone that knew of the time before the government took over, these oligarchs took over this party, took over everything, and the destruction of all things. The beginnings of what would be the Forever War. All those from previous generations have died out to the point where You got new generations of beings that have no understanding of the concept of generational or time or date or anything like this. They just know when they're told to wake up, when they're supposed to report to work. They can speak and all this, but they have no understanding of language, no reading or writing. Only a few that have the aptitude to do so or were genetically bred to be such will have certain jobs that would be assigned to them. Same thing with education. Majorly, the education is from what you would consider a television. In New Caledonia, since this society is mainly capitalism on steroids, that is what destroyed their nation. Hyperinflation, hyper capitalistic systems to where you own nothing and you are meant to be happy with it. That you worked for companies where you paid them rent on everything. You basically were a form of slave that were basically in company towns where you sold your soul to the company store and such. To the point where no one could survive. The cost of food was skyrocketing. This is the destruction of that society before New Caledonia. Well, within New Caledonia, there are many strange events. With this story, this main character, we'll call him, he finds that the information is very disturbing. He begins learning how to make writing implements of his own and starts doodling and drawing and writing. He creates his own script. Luckily for him, if anybody found such scribblings or notations of any kind, they could never make heads or tails. Even people with any form of education could not determine what these scribblings mean. To them, it is pointless. It is not any language. Even this character has no idea what he really does, what his job is. He doesn't even understand what any reason for work is. All that exists is capitalism. He knows that he has to work. If he doesn't go to work and do what he's told to do, then he will not get the credits that will be on his account so he can pay for his allotment of food. He's only allowed so much food of any kind. You're always on rations in this city, even in this nation. At least with he finds out that New Caledonia, he is lucky because most of his nation, the people cease to exist, or just only raised as cattle to be used as food for their own people, or to supply bodies for their forever war. There is much strife and destruction. And he finds out within the hinterlands, they're outside of these city states, is the realms of where there's things called farms, where you might seem to think that it's free. There are many such areas of these so-called farms have different things, such as almost a medieval feudal system where people are literally growing things by hand and harvesting it by hand. Huge droves of the community is cultivating the crops, harvesting them, and packaging them and all this, sending them all on these rail cars and such. It's a weird thing where futuristic train lines and a medieval farming communities exist side by side, where money does not exist in these lands, where people are given out portions of food that is minuscule. Then there are the other farmlands, which there is no people. There is only machines. Machines that do the tilling, the growing, the sowing of the crops, everything that has to do with cultivating of food is all done by machines. There are no animals that are being slaughtered. New Caledonia was a problem of food supply. So they have is these, you can call them like greenhouses more or less, but they only grow one particular crop. This long, thin, flat, green sheets. What it is a form of kelp of sorts, highly nutritious. It's what their standard food bars are, and it's also packed with extra vitamins and minerals that they need to just barely survive on a day-to-day basis. Everyone in New Caledonia is allotted of certain types of food, of how much that they can have and buy, and they have to buy the exact same amount. The quality of such things, of the grades, depends upon how much that they can afford. Yes, it's still capitalistic, they still have to pay, and they're still rationed about how much of every kind of food item that there exists that they're allowed to obtain. And the dairy is not dairy as you think. No. It is milks derived from nuts, such as macadamia nut milk, coconut milk. If they're lucky, they will get that, but typically almond milk. And of course, it would be sweetened so that it would be palatable to people. Luckily for the citizens of this world, everything is automated and clean. There is no ovens or stoves. There is only microwaves. Simple microwave ovens that you plop in these pre-made foods to eat. And you have is disposable plastic spork. No knives of any kind. No way of making implements of any kind of form of weaponry ceases to exist. when you live in this kind of dark, resetting world, it feels that if you know that there's something odd or wrong, you try to do is escape it in any way possible, and many have chose suicide if they can accomplish it. But our main character notes that of a beautiful woman that he has not seen the likes before of any other. And he also counts that women in his society are lesser than men. They will never, ever be citizens, could never be. And he also found out there is a little loophole where anyone can become a citizen, even if they never step foot in this nation. They just have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, an older form of currency that does not exist within the society, and the law hasn't changed. The people that live there have one currency, and the oligarchs use other currencies, even the older original currency of this nation before it was just called the government or just the nation. It is a very odd thing. The women in this world, in this nation, have no rights. They are absolute property of the nation. Their only purpose is to be bred based off of their own genes. And they would be matched up with people, well, men that have appropriate genes that will be used for harvesting to produce of children. And these children will be used by the government to be whatever they need it to be, such as producing a new series of soldiers, which they will do experiments to make them into super soldiers. But our character keeps on getting these mysterious packages placed at his doorstep. He even finds these things on his table. He wakes up some days and there's a mysterious package at his only table. And nobody has entered or left his place, and he has no idea where it came from. There's no place to hide such things. Luckily, there are no secret police or anything like that. When he read about such horrific things that existed in this nation prior to his existence into this world, he's glad that those times don't exist anymore. And he becomes more complacent, saddened about what he's missing of the rest of the world and knowing of the lies and more amounting lies of this world, but also finding out what happened prior to what New Caledonia is, what his nation is at this moment that is outside of New Caledonia. He is grateful that he lives where he is, and he realizes that even though that so many things are bleak and he's lost things that he never even knew even existed, such as freedoms of everything, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom to choose for yourself, the simple freedom of pursuing happiness. Happiness does not exist, but he's beginning to feel this feeling, which he can only construe as happiness. It is kind of a weird, blissful joy for him to realize that no matter what, his life isn't so bad after all. Even though his world, his nation, is a lie, it's bleak, it is going to fully collapse, that it cannot maintain what it is, that the destruction is imminent. And the things that he has ended up learning from these mysterious packages is new feelings. And one of these feelings happen to be love and lust and sexual desire, especially when he came across a woman that seemingly of his own age does not look like everyone else. She looks what we would consider as healthy. She has muscle mass and tone. Her face isn't gaunt. She is not looking like she's on the verge of dying from starvation. She's not famous. She's not an actress. He falls madly in love with this woman that he knows nothing about. He tries to get to know her, but in his world, love does not exist. You are paired up because the state wants you to. This nation doesn't have the capabilities of what other nations could acquire or do. Even though they could do that, vitro insemination and stuff, and producing of super soldiers, the nation has done this. But New Caledonia decides no, the easiest way to go about of such things, because they found so many different weird complications, was to go to the more dirtier route, to actually teach them of fornicating for this sole purpose. And that is it. Because they tried vitro insemination and stuff, but there were still complications and such. Even when they did was not just inseminate the woman, or they would take out her eggs and fertilize them in petri dishes and try to put them back into the woman. They even try to grow them. It was not successful in their endeavors to what they really wanted. Some city-states did not care about quality, so they just mass produce of people, such as these mutated monstrosities. If they had no real function to be in higher parts of the working civilization or in the military of some sort, they were sent somewhere else, depending on what city-state. It is dreadful. This character, when he starts obsessing about this woman, he knows nothing. He has these lavish relationship that's all in his mind. She does not even know that he exists. It is just a fantasy that he has. He understands the difference between reality and fantasy, and also knows that what he's feeling and what he wants to do is pointless, is futile, of desiring a relationship with another person, let alone a woman, because his nation will determine if he's allowed to have a wife or not. Spouses and such is a complicated thing that only is controlled by the government. They specify who's going to be paired up with whom, and their only purpose of being paired up is basically for procreation, to creating more of peoples that are needed. Only certain types of peoples that they declare that's worth anything for whatever they need. So one day, he runs into a mysterious being. The voice is ambiguous. It seems that it's multiple voices interchanging, almost mechanical in some way. Does not see what this person truly looks like, especially how this being is dressed, comes to them out of shadows and whatnot, and also appears in their room. Almost like a mysterious phantom, but leaves in the normal route out the door and whatnot. And yet nobody has noticed this being. He's almost thinking, is he going mad? He finds out that his neighbor has seen this being enter and exit his domicile and was afraid to say anything until he was caught noticing this strange unknown being that has been entering the main character's domicile, and the main character was there. And that's when they start talking about it privately, out of earshot of others. But luckily, in their world, there is no recording devices, no monitoring cameras, because New Caledonia realized it was pointless. The population was so great that it was literally pointless to monitor everyone, to record everybody, to find out what they said, to squash of any dissent. So it was easier for New Caledonia to literally squash the concept of thought, of reason, to getting rid of religion, of love and hatred, and all these biases, and to forming a new nation, to even knowing of other things. Yes, they're taught of the language to be spoken, but the histories of their society, it's only what their society would tell them what it is for the moment. All their TVs would ring out whatever entertainment, multitudes of entertainment, very old and bland and whatever. But it's just a repeat of the same nonsense. So this mysterious being that is visiting this character, his neighbor does break down and tells him that he's been spotting this being in their building, going and coming from the main character's domicile, and not knowing who they are. And they're both wondering of this. The neighbor wants to know, dearly wants to know what is going on. Is he in trouble or something? Who and what this stranger is? what is the specter that keeps on visiting and is afraid to even speak about it, even if to report it, thinking that even the slightest report of such a strange thing may construed as a crime in itself of noticing and reporting of such oddities. Because it's been well known within their society, if you see something strange, say nothing, because you will end up disappearing just like the people that you see in the streets disappearing by these unknown assailants coming from unmarked vehicles of some sort. The neighbor is also terrified to even have the inkling of knowing, but understands that this being comes to visit the main character and has strange discussions. Usually, the stranger tells the main character things, and the main character is telling his neighbor, just tells me of weird things there of this and that sort. And gives them tapes of information. The neighbor is also afraid to even report of even these items because it's not against the law to have recordings, tapes. These are devices that kind of look like VHS tapes, but it's completely different and more complex if you don't understand. Acts pretty much kind of the same way, but a little different. Usually you would have is recordings of whatever your information for your new job is going to be, or entertainment, because there is databases to go to get new types of entertainment, such as some sort of movies or whatever. And if you're of a certain status within the society, then you're allowed even of entertainment that is of the past. And I'm talking about what they considered is ancient and archaic, but entertaining nonetheless. Nothing that is too thought provoking. The more disturbing of entertainment that would be allowed to the populace is to show them of the horrors of war and what was before New Caledonia of things. It is meant to do is scare the populace of these horrific things when their worldviews are questioned, and then when they notice, and all they understand is before the party, before controlling and fixing, before this forever war, the world was horrible, destructive, violent. There was things known as murder and death, to the point where it scared the people. But it also made them even more afraid of their fellow citizens, fearing that this monstrous nightmare they've seen of old entertainment and not understanding of what it is, to being believed it's true or whatever, and some of it is like historical documents about World War II and such, thinking that Their fellow citizens that have been brainwashed and controlled and bred just like them can easily turn into this and being more afraid to being close to anybody, but also understanding that if you see anything, say nothing, to turn a blind eye to all things. Because people that start blabbing about things that are wrong when said, the ones that tattled on others will soon disappear as well. It's an easy way for the government to control anything and any form of dissent. So when people start speaking out and pointing fingers, the ones that are accusing and pointing of fingers and such, claiming of heresy and whatnot of any sort, soon they meet their demise instantaneously. And a lot of times the society decides that the ones that are accusing did not commit any of these crimes, and the one that accused is the true perpetuate of the hate, the violence that they, as the society at large, detests and makes it disappear very effectively. But New Caledonia is special because as the story progresses, you find out that what was the nation completely collapses. All that is truly left is a few city-states that are in competing with one another. They're sort of united, but not. And start doing similar things as New Caledonia has done. New Caledonia was meant to be a shining beacon for this nation, to also be a model for the rest of the nation, to make their mega cities. By the way, their mega cities are not like Judge Dredd. It's not that massive. These are just very dense cities. The population level is extremely high, but in a very small space, very controlled in every aspect. To each of these city-states are trying to figure out what they are, but the ones that rule it rule like emperors or kings or such, where they have all the pleasures of the world and have actual food while everybody else eats garbage. But at least New Caledonia, their people are surviving, have the nutrients, but are still undernourished, just barely surviving. Others have had severe medical problems. There's radiation and such, to the point where disease is rampant, mutations exist, degradation of humanity and society and genetics have been eroded to these new creatures. Each city-state is a mockery of life and everything, where there could be considered as separate nations. Very horrific. The main character starts getting information, visual information, and he notices what would be considered his monitor, his TV. He can get the information from the other city-states of what is going on, and some of these places, their citizens are monitored heavily where there's cameras and recording devices, and any kind of whisperings of any kind is severely squashed, to where the people just started speaking their own speech, creating two languages: the language of the people and the language of the nation itself. So the nation itself knows their language but don't know these multitude of new weird linguistic utterings, so the people can literally hide their true thoughts and feelings from the greater whole, to where they're in these little bubbles so they could survive and have their own internal dissent without fear of retribution, unless if others outside can understand or is offended by these constructs of civilization that differs from what is considered their norm of their society. It all collapses. This is a story about propagation, about a society that is on the decline, even though they try to create a utopian, fascist society that's really dystopian in every way, even though it's hiding that it is a dystopian under this bright, shiny exterior of New Caledonia. But once you leave that, you find that the rest of what was of that nation is a farce. It is horrific. It is destructive. It is toxic. It is not united. But the rest of the world, this main character finds out that the rest of the world is normal. Towards the end, he finds out, but he tries to even have a relationship with this strange woman to communicate. And she's actually meant for certain people. Her job is only to procreate with certain men because of their genes. And that's it. That is all her purpose is. She even tells the main character that she is not meant for him. Maybe one day he will have a woman that is meant for him, but she is not. She has no aspirations or anything. She seems to be a very flat character, because in some ways she is, because the main character doesn't know anything about her feelings or aspirations, just only what he can construe from her demeanor, and then has these lavish fantasies about them having a relationship or having any semblance of, togetherness, of loving and caring. Things that he's beginning to awaken inside of him, and what he has learned from these recordings and these mysterious visitations from this strange being. He never finds out who this strange being is. He's never tortured. His society has tortured him. The knowledge of the past and what is actually happening has been more devastating for him, but it also freed him to know that there are feelings that he never even knew existed. I don't even know if this is going to be an ongoing series or if it's just a single story. The story itself is about a society that collapsed, where an authoritative president of the nation, took control with his goons and destroyed every facet of the nation in every regard, and was able to do of these oligarchs to take up everything, to start buying up everything, destroying opposition, destroying dissent. But the problem was the people were too stubborn. There was internal strife, multitudes of rallies and fighting, and self destruction within the society itself, to where parts of the nation they just refused and separated and become their own nations. They didn't get absorbed by others. They decided, no, we're going to be our own. We have nothing to do with the latter, the former nation. And the nation itself dwindled, tries to do is start wars with other countries. The major first war was trade wars and trying to be a bully to the world, setting off extremely high tariffs to the point where everything became so expensive within this nation. Even what they produced was not enough. Getting rid of citizenship altogether, only to be used only for the very wealthy, that only the wealthiest of beings across the world could ever buy it, and very few would ever want citizenship of this nation because of the tyrannical laws, to where everything was being outlawed left and right. Freedoms have been eroded. The sense of law and order ceases to exist. Even the construct of what is truth, justice, even critical thinking and science and stuff was declared heresy and such, to where literally the society at large ended up being ruled by fucking imbeciles, moronic people, to where it ended up being detrimental to the society at large. The population was devastated. Many that believe in this authoritarian regime, thinking that they hate the same things as the people in charge, that they would not be affected, and finding out they were also on the chopping block, because they only declared certain people of certain criteria to actually be human, and everyone else is not. So if your skin color wasn't right, they deport you to horrific prisons in other nations, because they could not even do is put you in a prison of their own construction. Why? They've done it. They overpopulated the prison populace to where these prisons cannot hold any more people. And they start eradicating humans, like literally wiping them out, just in droves, to the point where they lost control of everything. Trying to start wars. This is the beginning of the Forever War, to where this ridiculous trying expansionism, except their nation was getting smaller and smaller because other offshoots that gained control of their local governments and stuff decided to break away. So sections of what was this nation have broken away to their own identities, their own, as their own little countries, have their own defenses, and and a lot of them end up at war with the former nation that is really a sham of what it once was. It's now a perverse form of what you would consider any kind of society. To the point where there end up being a handful of families that each one decided to do was separate, still being part of what was left of this nation, but now decided to rule their own territories where one family ruled supreme and there would be their way. And one particular family, they decided to do was create what is New Caledonia. And it was meant to be an example of what to do. So that is why New Caledonia became what it is. The rest went into a destructive dystopian society to the point where these oligarchs don't even live in their own nations. They actually have citizenship and stuff, but they meet via online, except they live in other nations, living lavishly. Um, the currency of this nation still exists, except the problem is that the rest of the world does not recognize it, does not trade in it, so the value of that currency literally dropped to nothing. So the nation itself had to resort of using is New Caledonia's currency, which is credits. So the whole nation decided, okay, let's keep the original currency, but it's only for the governing body, more or less, to do these trades. But typically, this nation does not even trade outside, and they find loopholes to trade to New Caledonia because these oligarchs also own corporations and stuff outside of this nation that could actually produce stuff, and they ship it, but without the tariffs. The tariffs are really meant for anyone else, to the point where they're literally blockade to where there is no trade of anything that isn't of these oligarchs, of their corporations, of their material goods that influx into it without tariffs, without restraints. And the currency is mass produced like crazy. But New Caledonia created credits that is all digital, that is not a cryptocurrency, because they find that to be stupid in every regard. Get rid of it. So everyone works for New Caledonia, whatever job it is, and they're given a paycheck, you know, that is within their accounts. Each person has their own private account. So the money is just added to it. It doesn't come from anywhere. It just is added based off of, okay, you did your job for so many hours of the day, so you get this amount of money per hour. And therefore, you get that pay no matter what you did, whatever it is. Kind of gamified a lot of stuff, but yeah, to the point where people are busy, but majority of actual labor is done by machines. Machines were created in other nations that made robotics more efficient and more capable of doing more difficult or dangerous work. These machines are the things that exist within New Caledonia. There is no robotic servants. There is no extreme advance of technology. There is no gas, or there is electricity, yes, but there's no ovens, no stoves. There's only a microwave oven. There is no replicators of any sort. But you find out the only kind of replication that they have is controlled in minute areas of their of New Caledonia they produce. If you're wondering why there is no crime within New Caledonia, simple. Everybody has the same allotment. Um, Your clothes are literally tailor fit to be yours with your destination on it. So it's kind of pointless if somebody steals your clothes because you cannot alter them. You cannot rob somebody of somebody else's money because it's not a physical thing, and it is tied to that person. It is impossible to steal. They made sure that it is an impossibility. That is pointless. That since nobody has ownership of anything, especially of like personal effects of any kind, no. And nobody would want anything from anybody because they are taught from a very young age by the state how to think, how to act, how to be what unquote a human being is supposed to be. And based off of their gender determines what they are supposed to do and function within the society of New Caledonia. But they also did was hid the fact that anyone could do is buy citizenship, except citizenship is still under the original currency that no one even knows exists anymore, and no one even owns any bit of that currency or can use it in any format. So that's like kind of pointless, but yeah. Primarily, this story is about what is going on now and what has happened in the past, and a lot of takes from other dystopian storylines and trying to come up with a new version. The whole aspect of the crazy shit that's going on now and seeing project it forward if this kind of crazy shit continues and how to the extreme is to the point where can a society be constructed from the aftermath of the destruction of this crazy shit, of destruction of the world and such? What would really happen? That is what this story is. It's a tale that is horrific in so many different ways, but it's a place that you would not want to live ever, not even to visit for a single day or moment. It is a cautionary tale, but it is told through the eyes of one particular person who now is shown the reality of things. That his world is not what he believes it to be, what he's told to believe, but to really begin to know. And also beginning to know what it is to be human.